Our next speaker is Peter Bandettini from the NIH.
Okay. So there'll be probably a little bit of overlap with everything we say. So when I first agreed to this, I sort of used the title "Feeding the Fire," and I don't know exactly why I chose that, but it's just because I pictured, optimal approach to your work and your life and everything is sort of like a fire that you're trying to feed. But then as I actually sat down and sort of tried to think about this talk, then I realized that, what is a fire? So I'll get into that a little bit, and then I tried to put it in terms of, what are the principles? I mean, avoiding burnout is one thing that's sort of a part of just sort of, living as well as you can and taking care of yourself and keeping your perspective. But I have no disclosures. So what characterizes burnout? All of us feel this from time to time. It's like physical or emotional depletion, detachment, isolation, loss of purpose or energy or efficacy, lack of focus, procrastinating, slipping into the social media black hole, feeling of overwhelm, decreased resilience. So in general, it's like you're out of kilter. You're not at this sort of position where you're sort of optimally responsive to the environment, optimally responsive to your needs, and you're not happy. So what can you do? What can lead to burnout? So a lot of external conditions. I mean, certainly a lot of us are, especially in today's times, maybe we've had grants taken away from us, or funding taken away, or people fired, or things like that. All world circumstances. Those are conditions that can cause you to slip into this mindset of feeling like things are bleak and then not being as responsive as you can be. Lack of fairness in your job, lack of purpose, you feeling like you don't really have, like the work itself, the objective work itself may not. You might realize, oh, this is sort of meaningless, maybe, but hopefully none of us here feel that. But pressure to publish and perform. I mean, there's constant pressure. These are all like circumstances that exist, and you can't really do much necessarily to deal with these circumstances. Judgment by others. You can't help what other people think of you. Difficult people. But I think that what's essential to get a non-optimal response to these is sort of that you allow them to make you feel a certain way. That you feel that your framing of them makes you feel overwhelmed, trapped, misunderstood, inadequate, and so on. And that leads to burnout, and this could be like a vicious circle then. So that can keep on fostering a mindset that's affected by the circumstances more than it has to be in a negative way. So but then I started thinking about the fire. So what is a fire? So I tried to put this all into a perspective of, the scientists in me thought, okay, a fire is like a complex adaptive system. It sort of like regulates its fuel, it regulates the oxygen that's burning at a certain rate just to keep on burning at this certain rate. And you don't want to have the fire go out. So, and looking at, it's even more than an analogy. I think that, our lives, we're, people, especially in a social context, are complex adaptive systems. They have means of getting feedback to sort of keep them in an optimal state. And so, the fire self-regulates, and it's neither fully random nor fully structured. So it's sort of like a dance between this random and structured. And too much of one or the other is not optimal as well. And so, and it needs tending. So how is, self-organized criticality in healthy systems? Critical state is one that optimally transfers information, and optimally is responsive to environment and can react. It allows micro adjustments, and there's a certain dynamic balance. In a state of burnout, the system's no longer self-correcting, and it's rigid. The operation is either too damped or it's too chaotic. It overreacts to certain things, or there's too much coming in. It's overwhelmed. So with individuals, as I mentioned, there's too much order. That's if you feel trapped in a situation, you're doing everything right and nothing is happening, then that feeling you get is sort of like an overconstrained, not adaptive response. And then too much chaos. You have too much going on. You're going between too many different things. That's also an unstable condition that is non-optimal as well. And in that criticality, it's basically where one has this sense of flow. One feels like they're kind of dancing in some sense. They're feeling like, okay, I'm doing my thing, and I'm responsive, and so I'm adjusting, and I'm aware of what is healthy for me. I'm aware of what I can do, and so that's the state that the system tries to go to. And so, it's sort of like this curve here. Basically, it's you have too much overwhelm of like just doing like certain things over and over again with no effect. That's not optimal. Too much chaos. That's not optimal. And so you want to try to achieve this optimal state. But how do you do that? So signs you're moving away from criticality or towards burnout is, you're not having these spontaneous aha moments or insights. You're not sensitive to feedback as much. You know you're doing something and you just don't care, or you can't change it. You're always in sort of a sense that you're in recovery mode. And your behavior, you just feel like you're in survival mode for the most part. And you're not reflecting, you're not adjusting, that sort of thing. So as far as mindsets and habits as a regular, so mindset, it sort of shapes the response to feedback. So I think that my feeling is that the answer to adjusting to burnout is trying to step back and do something. It's easier said than done, but do something about your mindset. And I'll talk about a little bit of the heuristics. So reframing. So try to filter the feedback to only use the feedback that's helpful. You have to calibrate its utility. Like, for instance, if some random person criticizes you for what you're doing, you just simply try to put it in a framework of, well, do I really need to take their feedback? I mean, usually not. Or sometimes you do. Sometimes it's useful. But it's important to sort of keep a mindset that's aware of what you can control, what you can't, and the utility of the feedback that you get. It's fundamental to have a regular physical or mental habits that break out of this state. So it's good to have some sort of rituals. I run every day. That really helps clear my head. It does a lot. It's just, it's putting yourself into a mode that helps you have this mindset. And that's just regular rituals like that. And the principle is to focus on tending the fire and to tend to yourself, to take care of yourself and the system. And so if you do that, the system will take care of itself, and you'll be able to at least deal with the issues and the problems that could be completely overwhelming in themselves, but you'll at least have a mindset to deal with them as well as you can. So just a couple of quick heuristics. Add small perturbations to your life. Change something small, but deliberately. Try new routes, schedules. Micro novelty sort of helps. Respect natural rhythms. Work. Everyone has a certain work pattern. Just take breaks. This is sort of practical stuff, but that actually, when done well, and not too constrictive, but not too random. It has an effect. Another heuristic. Reintroduce local feedback loops, which means that become aware. So be aware. Try to be more mindful of your moods, your physical state, and your sleep, and things like that, so that you can adjust it. Reduce global noise before fine-tuning. In other words, if you have a big, if you have like a project to do or whatever, try to clear the slate and then build your own complexity instead of like just adding it on top of a whole bunch of things that you're doing. That helps a lot. Watch for dead zones and runaway loops. So, if you're stuck in sort of a constant, doing things on autopilot or bouncing between too many things, try to just step back. Once again, it's like a principle of stepping back, being aware that you're doing it, and try to break it in some way. And deliberately surf tension. Choose tasks that are not impossible, but not too easy. And just try to be in that state where you're sort of growing and pushing yourself with the tasks that you chose. Once again, it's a principle of being mindful about what you're doing. And make space for spontaneous avalanches. This is critical for me as well. I actually, certain things that are non-negotiable, I talk about that, just having a certain amount of a blocked time that you can actually, it doesn't have to be like the same time every day or whatever, but just block time to allow yourself to just kind of be creative and not really, have a deadline or pushing yourself. Just allow yourself to just explore in a productive way. Has always been critical for me. And engage in multiple scales. Once again, zoom in, zoom out. Focus on one problem deeply, then step back and look at it broadly. Going in and out like this is also a helpful thing. So basically all these heuristics are sort of like a form of being aware and filtering your feedback and making adjustments. Balanced input and output energy, and then track cascades of meaning. So for instance, just be aware and make note of, what are the things that happened today that actually were meaningful or pleasurable or good. Just taking the time to note that it goes a long way in sort of enhancing your life in that regard. So for me, just focusing on exercise a little bit, I think that physical exercise is a great thing. It's not only just good for your body and makes you healthy, but it really does, help a lot of things. It puts you in a completely different mindset. I mean, there's lots of hormonal changes and other types of changes that occur after you exercise. I usually exercise, I try to do, 30 minutes a day to try to work up a sweat, and then my day is made after that. It's fine. So I have certain personal non-negotiables. I need to go for my run or whatever. I need my space and time, and I sort of try to naturally build that into my day. And I try to, and especially this is, every single day you're confronted with things that are, really challenging, difficult people, difficult circumstances, really stressful things that have a lot of risks to them. Like, what will I do if I can't get this grant? What will I do? And so I think it's important to, focus on the metrics that really matter, meaning that, try to differentiate between, what matters versus what doesn't matter, and what you can control and what you can't control, and just focus on what you can control. So, I try to make my own goals, purposes, and routines. I don't try to have them externally driven as much. And and try to focus on things that don't depend on what other people, what you can't control. Like, for instance, how you're perceived if you win an award or get a grant or whatever. Just focus on the things you can control, and that's useful. So my last slide here is just, certain heuristics that have helped me personally. So that I was talking more generally, but have helped me personally. So aside from exercise, I have certain mantras. I mean, it's sort of like a strange thing. Like, for instance, if I'm in a situation where I know that it's really grim, or if it's really stressful and I don't know if I'm going to succeed, I just kind of like go back and think, okay, all I can do is my best. And if I know I'm doing my best, that's good enough. And that usually helps that moment. And it also helps to prevent the burnout, because repeated worrying about what's going to happen and what are the outcomes, aside from just simply focusing on doing your best, leads to burnout, I think, as well. It sort of leads you to be sort of, stressed all the time. So right, devalue the outcomes of what other people think. I also have another perspective. If I'm overwhelmed with chaotic things going on and I have way too much, I just try to sit back and say, okay, just do one thing at a time. Just focus on one thing at a time. And that's usually the best way to go about it. Sleep is important. I emphasize this because I don't get enough sleep. So, all these things are things that one strives for, tries to do, but you're always failing. And that's another way to prevent burnout, is to not judge yourself too negatively when you fail. We all fail. It's just part of living. And you usually learn from your failures, and it's just feedback. And so not worrying about how other people judge you, and also not judging yourself too harshly, I think is important for preventing burnout. Staying away from social media. I fall into those black holes all the time. And I always like, what the heck? Why did I just spend like the last 3 hours scrolling through Instagram? And it's frustrating, but then you just sort of like, okay, what mechanism will I try to do to sort of get out of that rut? Gratitude is fundamental, trying to focus on what you are thankful for. I try not to work when I'm too tired. It's just not worth it. You don't do the optimal work, and sometimes you have to, but if you have a choice, not to. Avoid negative people. Engage as much as possible with positive, interesting people. Like at this meeting, this is a very regenerative meeting for me, because there's so many passionate people who we have similar interests. Nurture family relationships. All your social connections are fundamental for keeping you in this state of avoiding burnout. And stay organized and intentional. I make a lot of lists, and it's a really minor thing, but it's like I get a little bit of a dopamine rush, when I check off that list, and that sort of makes me feel like I'm making progress, like the whole back to one thing at a time sort of mindset. And so you sort of feel at least good about some sort of progress you're making, and it helps me be organized. And then also just be authentic. I think it's stressful and draining to try to put on an appearance and to care too much about an appearance, because then once again, you're putting the judgment, you're putting value in how others necessarily see you, as opposed to, it's much easier just to try to be yourself and try to be your best self. So with that, back to the fire. It's sort of like, keeping that fire going, and involves being mindful of the feedback, of the input that goes into it, and constantly adjusting to try to keep that balance, and tending to the fire and not worrying about the outcome is to me sort of the answer as far as that's concerned. So thank you.